What if everything you think you know about the 2026 Formula One season is already wrong? For months, we've been told one story. Mercedes is untouchable. Mercedes is sandbagging. Mercedes is just waiting to flip the switch in Melbourne and crush everyone. But what if they're not the hunters this year? What if Ferrari is? Because in Bahrain, something shifted. And if you were paying attention, it wasn't subtle. All pre-season, the narrative felt locked in. Mercedes looked calm, polished, in control. Their long-run pace was smooth, consistent, the kind of consistency that wins championships. The new generation car looked stable, predictable, no drama. Inside the garage, the confidence was quiet but obvious. Even when Ferrari topped the timing sheets, most people shrugged it off. Testing times don't matter. Mercedes is hiding. Performance. Wait until Melbourne. But here's the problem. This isn't about what Mercedes might be. Hiding. It's about what Ferrari already showed. They didn't look like a team experimenting. They looked ready to race. And not just fast. Complete. Under the new 2026 regulations, race starts are everything. Energy deployment, turbo prep, clutch synchronization. One small mistake, and you lose 5 positions before turn 1. Ferrari? They looked ahead of the curve. Lewis Hamilton's practice launches turned heads across the paddock. In one simulation, he went from deep in the order straight to the front. That's not luck. That's system mastery. George Russell didn't hide his concern. He admitted his own starts were worse than anything he'd experienced in Formula One. He even called it the biggest hurdle right now. That's a huge statement. Because in 2026, if you don't nail the launch, you're stuck. Dirty air. Energy loss. Strategy compromised before the first lap is done. Ferrari seems to have solved that puzzle early. Part of it may come down to architecture. Reports suggest Ferrari is running a smaller turbo that requires less energy to spool up. That means sharper response. Cleaner launches. And if that's baked into the power unit design, it's not something rivals can copy overnight. That's a structural advantage. Then there's energy deployment. In this era, power isn't just combustion. It's electric. Roughly half the output depends on how well you harvest, store, and redeploy energy. That affects overtaking, defense, tire life, everything. Russell even admitted Red Bull's deployment looked scary. But Ferrari's efficiency was obvious too. Not just on a single hot lap. Across longer runs, Charles Leclerc ended testing with the fastest overall lap, a 1 minute and 31.992 seconds. And it wasn't a glory run on fumes. It was part of a broader program mixing qualifying style pace with race. Stints. Context matters. Ferrari's advantage didn't look like a fluke. It looked engineered. And then came the aero concept. Ferrari introduced one of the boldest rear wing designs in the paddock. In straight-line mode, the flaps rotate aggressively to slash drag. Early data suggested gains of up to 8 to 10 km per hour. But the real genius isn't just top speed. It's energy saving. Less drag means less electrical deployment needed down the straight. That preserves energy for later in the lap. Or for defending. Or attacking. That's strategic flexibility, and it's not a bolt-on trick. It required internal packaging changes, even gearbox adjustments. In other words, this wasn't reactive. It was planned from day one around the 2026 rules. That's big. There were also signs Ferrari addressed braking stability, an area that frustrated Hamilton during the ground effect era. Observers noted changes to the diffuser and exhaust layout that could stabilize the rear under heavy deceleration for a driver like Hamilton. Confidence under braking is everything, and his comments were telling. He said this car feels fundamentally different, that he's been involved in its simulator development for months. A bit of my DNA is within it. That matters. When a driver feels ownership, performance follows. Now, it wasn't perfect. Hamilton lost track time with a chassis issue. He didn't look fully comfortable at high speed just yet. Leclerc appeared more settled overall, but that gap could close quickly. Meanwhile, Mercedes still looked strong. Their long-run pace was impressive. Consistent mid-1:35s in race simulations. Kimi Antonelli put in one of the standout laps of testing. The car clearly has speed. The vibe inside the team? Calm. Confident. Very different from previous seasons of uncertainty. But there were questions. Top speed numbers suggested Mercedes may have been more conservative with energy deployment. Russell was reportedly around 8 km per hour slower than Leclerc on comparable runs. Maybe that's sandbagging, maybe, but what if it isn't? What if Ferrari simply built a more efficient package for this specific rule set? Even Mercedes insiders seem cautious. Russell pointed out that limited practice time in Melbourne leaves almost no margin for error. 3 hours before qualifying. That's it. If your systems aren't fully optimized, you don't get a second chance, and that brings us to the real issue. Readiness.in a new regulatory era, raw pace isn't enough. You need reliability, operational sharpness, launch precision, energy discipline, strategic control. Ferrari looked aligned across those areas, and psychologically, they seem different too. After a disappointing 2025, expectations are tempered. The tone from team leadership is measured, focused. No wild championship predictions. Just quiet belief. That's dangerous, because while everyone assumed Mercedes would dominate, Ferrari has been building something cohesive. Bahrain didn't prove Ferrari is the clear favorite, but it shattered the certainty, and sometimes that's even more powerful. When the lights go out in Melbourne, we'll finally see the truth. No more sandbags. No more theories. Just pure competition. So here's the real question. If Ferrari controls the launch phase, manages energy better, and dictates strategy from the front, will raw Mercedes pace even matter? Has Ferrari genuinely shifted the balance of power heading into 2026? Or will Mercedes remind everyone why they were favorites in the first place? Drop your prediction in the comments. Who takes the opening win in Melbourne? And if you want in-depth breakdowns all season long, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because if Bahrain was a preview, 2026 is about to get wild.